Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back I guess also to another series, installment, episode, video, I don't know, of the book club, in which we will be talking about The Prison Doctor. So if you want to see how I got on with this book and also find out what the next book is for the month ahead, then keep watching. So if you're new to the book club, you've stumbled across this, or it's the first time you've watched one of my book videos, then myself and my extremely good friend Katie Ellison have clubbed together to start up a book club again, because we really like the incentive of being able to read and have a purpose and a reminder that reading is good for us. It's better than sitting around on our phones all day or watching naff telly. And this month, or the past month, we have been reading The Prison Doctor, and if you've been joining in, you've been reading it too. Now what we're doing with every video is that we're answering a series of questions, so we can kind of put the books up side by side against each other and also give them a rating as well. So if anyone comes to look through these videos and wants some book suggestions, then you kind of get an idea of which one might be most suitable for you, or which one you might want to read first, if that makes sense. So I have the questions on my phone and I'm going to get started, but if you're curious about what this book is about, it basically follows a doctor called Amanda Brown who left her GP practice in pursuit of something new when she didn't like the changes to the way she worked. The government put in new rules and guidelines where you had to ask a certain amount of questions regardless of the patient's mental state or personal situation, and she was just done. She didn't like it, so she decided to take on a different path and ended up being offered a job in a prison, and it progressed from there. She worked at several prisons, and this just kind of documents her experience, and yeah, that's what it's about. So let's get on to the questions. So the first one is, what did you think of the book? Now this is an interesting one because I'm gonna put it out there, and I really don't mean to make myself sound like ill-educated or ignorant, but I tend to prefer fictional books. This is a true account, a true story if you will, and I never really warmed to them, and I don't know what it is. I think that I prefer books to become escapism for me, so in a way it's quite a comfort when the story isn't real, because if bad things happen then it's all right for me to just kind of wash over it and say, oh, it's just a book, which I'm aware makes me sound a little bit sensitive and vulnerable. Maybe I am. I just read things that I gravitate towards generally, but Katie chose this book and I was like, right, I'm gonna give it a go, and you know what? I really enjoyed it. I reluctantly put off reading it for ages. In fact, I only started reading it in the last week when I had a whole month to do so, because I wasn't feeling it. So I was reaching for other books that I already had because I wanted something more light-hearted because the sun was out, or this, that and the other. But I actually really enjoyed it. Question number 2 is, what did you think of the characters? So this is quite, well, it's a different book, isn't it? It's factual, it's non-fiction, so it's not that I could look at any of these people in this book and go, they're all characters, they're just a figment of somebody's imagination, because they're all real people with their own stories. One thing I did think while I was reading it, and it was kind of food for thought, it's not necessarily a criticism, but I always wonder, I wonder how these people, prisoners in particular, feel about their stories being in here. Obviously, I'm assuming maybe names have been changed, or they've consented, but it must be a very strange experience to have your lifestyle and your mistakes and your life choices reflected in somebody else's story. And it was the first time I'd actually had food for thought in that case. I'd never actually considered that before. How do other people feel when they are in somebody else's story and it's real life? But I did think that she showed all of the characters very truthfully, and it was never negative. I loved her account, and I loved the sense of humanity that she kept throughout her job, because obviously she's working with people who in a lot of cases have done some very bad, inexcusable things, but she still sort of stood by, I guess, the Hippocratic Oath, and she still treated them with respect, and she still did the best that she could for them, and that was incredibly humbling. So it's an awkward question to answer, but that's my view. And then moving on from that, who was your favourite character? I mean, obviously the person that I got to know the most was Dr. Amanda Brown. She was the one that, this is her story, she wrote this book, and I have to give her props, I guess, and give her a bit of like a round of applause, because it's like she's not an author, she's a doctor primarily, and I just thought that she did a really good job with writing this. Question number 4, what did you think the main themes of the book were? Again, with real life, maybe we need to revisit these questions when we do non-fiction. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I don't know, but I guess the biggest thing that I took from it was that it was actually quite humbling. It was a humbling thing to read. It kind of gave me a lot of food for thought. I've said that already. And it was also, I don't know, I had a lot of respect for her for being able to do that job, which in some instances I know she was frightened. In some instances there was just a ridiculous amount of like juxtaposition. Like there was one point where she was trying to resuscitate a prisoner, then paramedics arrived, and then someone just goes to her, oh, do you fancy a brew? And she's like, yeah, I'd love one. And that, like, say if one of my children have had a fall or hurt themselves, or you know, something bad's happened, to flip from that moment where I'm feeling emotional and overwhelmed to just like go on and do something else, I would find that incredibly hard to do. And I just found it fascinating. I really was fascinated, and I have even more respect for people that work in the medical field, whichever area that might be. Question number 5 is, what did you think of the ending? And again, her life isn't over yet, her journey's not over yet as a doctor within a women's prison, which is where she's currently residing at the moment. And I don't know, part of me kind of wonders if she'll bring out like a sequel to it and she'll tell us more about her journey, more about her reflection maybe when she does retire. I didn't feel like unsatisfied with the ending, because she can only write so much, and I understood that, you know, it's simply she was up to where she was in present day. But I just thought it was really well written, and I came away feeling quite satisfied when it ended, which I guess you can't always say of fictional books, because sometimes it's like an open ending and you get a bit angry, or at least I do anyway. Question number 6, how did the book make you feel once you'd finished it? Again, humbled was probably the best word. Eye-opened maybe, and also quite embarrassed of maybe how naive I am. But I also feel like she started out feeling quite naive about the whole situation, and she learned a lot. And I think comparatively to maybe what she did in her local community GP practice versus what she did now, she realised that it was a completely different world and a completely different set of challenges. And I really enjoyed it. I just thought it was really insightful, and it was a nice read, and it's made me want to sort of open up my reading time to a few more books like that. Question number 7, how long did it take you to read? I would say I picked this up and put it down again over, I would say, a week. Only because, as I've said before, there were just certain books that click with me, and this was like a different genre for me. But that's the nice thing about the book club, because I feel like I'm being pushed out of my comfort zone. Katie and I read a lot of similar books, but then at the same time we both have like areas that we both branch off into, and it was nice to be forced out of my comfort zone. It was nice to be challenged. Question number 8, would you recommend it to a friend? Now, it's funny actually, because I kept saying the whole time while I was reading it to Mark, I think you'd really like this book. I think you'd really like this book. You should give this a go when I finished it. I think you'd really like this book. I've probably done his editing, to be honest, but Mark is very different from me, and a lot of the books that he tends to read are non-fiction generally, but he doesn't read that much at all. He just, you know, some people love to read and it clicks and they read really quickly, whereas Mark will take longer over a book, you know, pick it up and put it down. It'll be like a few months in between, and it's just the way he is. And I think we're all different. Like, I know quite a few people like that actually, but I have been recommending it to him, and I do think that I would recommend it to quite a few people. Question number 9, would you read another book from this author? Now, as I know, she hasn't written anything since, but if she did write a sequel, then I would be very much up to reading it. I would love to read it actually and see like how things have progressed, and whether she'd re-encountered any of her patients throughout prison, because there were a few times where she's mentioned that she'd like re-encountered someone again. There was a Spanish man who had his throat slit, and she was holding it together. Sorry if this is graphic, by the way. Before I continue, if anything like that like triggers you in any way or puts you off or just makes you feel a bit gross, skip a couple of minutes maybe. But yeah, she was holding it together and willing him to live and trying to make sure that he survived. And then, I don't know, a few days later, something like that, she saw him again and his throat was stapled up, and he came over, and despite the language barriers and obviously the effects to his vocal cords, he came over and like tried to catch up with her, and she sat him down. She was like, "Are you okay?" And he mouthed thank you to her, and it was just, oh, it was so humbling, like, to think that she'd been like a beacon of hope for someone. And another thing that, and I realise I'm going off in a tangent, but I really wanted to talk about this part. At the very beginning of the book, she was talking to a colleague in the first prison that she worked in, and he made a comment about, oh, it's a bit like life is like sliding doors, you know, the film, and how you're literally at that point in your life where you could make one of two decisions, and some people choose the wrong one, some people choose the right one, some people are pushed towards the wrong decision or pushed towards the right one. And that's how she felt about her career change. But it also made me realise that obviously there are some people in prison who have done, and know that they have done and chosen to do really, really bad things. But then there were other people, particularly when she was in the women's prison and she was hearing about their stories, who ended up there through abuse, through like people taking advantage of their vulnerability, or just their certain situations in life and the way life had kind of brought them to where they are. Not to sort of take away their responsibility and the choices that they made, because they are people and they have their own choices, but some people sort of end up in these situations. And I think sometimes, without going too deep, we tend to turn to judgment so quickly in society these days, especially when you think about the way society is and how we like judge people for sleeping homeless in the street and not having sympathy for them, or not trying to relate to them and not trying to jump to any old conclusion. Judgment is rife, and it's such a terrible, terrible affliction, because ultimately judgment says more about the person making that judgment than it does anybody else. And I just really, I don't know, I really enjoyed seeing how she like put things aside to try and do the best job that she could, and she was more than just a doctor in some cases. So I think, without rambling any more than I already have done, the answer to that one is a definite yes. And then finally, the last question is, how many stars would you give it out of 5? And I'm going to give this book 4 out of 5 stars, only because I feel like 5 is that magic number, isn't it? And I don't give it out very easily, but I did really enjoy it. So if you've not yet read it, you've not had a chance or anything like that, then The Prison Doctor by Dr. Amanda Brown, really good read. Really interesting, really insightful, felt like I learned something. Yeah, I just thought it was a really good read. Now, drum roll please, what is going to be the next book? Now, I'm excited about this because I picked this month's book, and it is by one of my favourite authors, and I think a few of you that I've chatted books with already will know who that author is, or at least have a good guess, because I've got a few that are really up there, and this lady is one of them. This is Tell Me Your Secret by Dorothy Comson. I have read, I'm pretty sure I've read all of her books now. I think she's brilliant. Basically, I just saw that she had a new book and I didn't even need to read what it was about before I added it to my Amazon basket, but I will read what it's about to you. So are you ready? I feel like a primary school teacher or something reading the book. So, Pieter has a secret. 10 years ago, Pieter was kidnapped by a man calling himself the Blindfolder. He said he wouldn't kill her if she kept her eyes closed for 48 hours. She never told anyone what happened to her, vowing to move on with her life. But when the Blindfolder starts hunting down his past victims, Pieter realises she may finally be forced to tell her deepest secrets to stay alive. Jodie has a secret. 15 years ago, policewoman Jodie made a terrible mistake that resulted in the serial killer known as the Blindfolder escaping justice. When Jodie discovers journalist Pieter survived an attack by him, she realises that she may finally have found a way to catch him, but would that mean endangering at least 2 innocent people? They kept quiet to protect themselves. Will telling all save or sacrifice each other? And yeah, okay, I'm there, I'm ready. I love her books, and I seriously suggest that you get on board with this one if you haven't joined in already, because Oh, it's gonna be good, I know it. I'm really excited. And also, like, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it does look like a nice book, doesn't it? It's a nice book. As always, Katie and I will be giving away copies of the book to 3 lucky people each. But yeah, I hope you join in. I hope you enjoyed this video as well, and have a lovely rest of your week, whatever you get up to. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you very soon. Bye.